Well, folks, in today's live stream, we're going to be working on this Tyco Burlington GP20 locomotive I picked up on eBay. I paid around $3.50 for this locomotive, and it does technically run to some extent. The problem is it doesn't run very well, so I figured in today's live stream, we're going to try to get this thing going a little bit better. We'll clean up the wheels, we'll open up this area here and service the motor, and hopefully we'll turn this into a somewhat decent locomotive. As you can tell, it's clearly had some wear put on it. There is a lot of damage. You know, it's missing the truck covers and so on. But, you know, if we can get this thing at least capable of pulling some cars, I'll be happy. So I'll take it over to the track. I'll show you all what exactly, you know, it's doing right now, and then we'll go from there. So let's begin. So if we get this thing all set up on the track and give it about 18 volts of power, you'll see that, you know, it will run, but it should be going a lot faster. And you can see too, when it is moving, the current draw is quite a bit higher than it should be. So it's clearly in need of an overhaul. So we'll bring it back over to the workbench and see if we can change that up a little bit. Is this actually live or a premiere? No, this is a legitimate live stream, a live repair. Now anyways, these Mantua Taiko locomotives are actually way better than the Tyco counterparts, which came later. They actually kind of got worse over the years, unfortunately. So generally, I really like these locomotives. However, they're not ideal to work on because for whatever reason, Tyco decided to use rivets instead of bolts. I don't know why they did this, but if you want to service one of these drives, you have to drill these out. It's a real pain in the neck, but if an engine's running like it is, it's something you've got to do. So I've got a drill here, so we're going to quickly drill those out, and then we'll be able to actually work on everything properly. You might want to plug your ears for this. It might be far enough. I might have to grab a larger bit. I always start with a small bit and work my way up. What locomotive would you recommend for a starter? Preferably steam. Probably an IHC or Mahana locomotive. So we'll see if that's done anything. I'm just going to quickly grab a larger bit. I think that the one I have is just a little bit too small. No problem. Aren't there screws on the sides of the bogies? Unfortunately not. I was describing earlier that, in my opinion, Mantua Taiko kind of made a mistake with that. But it's really easy to open these things up just as long as you have a drill. Okay, I think we're through that one. Where'd you get this at? I bought it on eBay a couple years ago for about $3 or so. So anyways, we're now on the inside, and you can see everything is a little bit dirty. There's definitely some buildup. Bearings look okay. And the motor doesn't look too bad either. There is some carbon buildup on the commutator, but you know, that's really to be expected. This is a 50 to 60-year-old locomotive. So we'll take a toothpick here and we'll just try to clean this out. We might have to sharpen the end of this just to actually get in the gaps, but well, it's doing an okay job. You can see there's quite a bit of gunk coming out of there. That's the first HO scale engine I had, a Tyco Burlington Northern GP20, Christmas of '72. That's awesome. Hopefully we can get this one going. So those are all looking okay now. I'm going to see if I have my fiberglass pencil around, because it would be nice just to clean up these surfaces a little bit. This really doesn't look that bad, but just a little bit of grease and so on, that would be good to remove. Pokemon 29, love all your videos and live streams. Keep up the good work, SMT. It's very inspiring. Thank you. I have a locomotive just like that. I think they are somewhat common. But yeah, with a little bit of maintenance, these Mantua Taikos last forever. They're so much better than their power torque counterparts. Unfortunately, I've run out of rubbing alcohol, so this is kind of like the best I can do for now. But again, all the important spots are not looking that bad, so I think we'll just throw some fresh oil in this thing, get it all sealed up. Because fundamentally, it's all turning properly, which is what really matters. And we'll check in on the wheels too, just to make sure there's no hair or anything caught, which can happen pretty often. Yeah, you can see there's quite a bit of grease on there. Hey SMT, I need your help with an Athearn Union Pacific AC 4400 with DCC and sound. It has crap weld joints. Like soldering? If it has a bad soldering job, you can just buy yourself like a 50-watt soldering iron and just reheat all the ends, and they should reflood. I've never had that problem. Usually the Athearns are pretty good for that, but it can happen. I mean, honestly, all these parts are really not in that poor of a condition. Is Bachmann a good brand? I find Bachmann locomotives are decent. They're certainly not the best. I can say that with you know, some certainty. I don't find for the price they're all that good, but you know, a modern Bachmann engine will serve you fine. They're light years ahead of what they were making in the 80s. And in the 80s, Bachmann was making pretty junky locomotives. And then around the 90s and in the early 2000s, they really focused on improving their quality. And I'd say, you know, it's paid off to some extent, but their prices have gone up like crazy. So they're not my favorite brand, but you probably won't have too many issues. Dodger Bend Railway, how's it going? Trying to clean these wheels up just well enough to get the engine moving. Once we actually get this drive turning over, I'll probably try to clean the wheels up a little better, but it's always easier to clean the wheels once they're out of the locomotive. You should get one of the Amtrak Superliners from Kato. I heard they're very good. Kato in general makes very good products. I've never been disappointed with anything I've bought from them. You know, they're not like the most detailed products out there, but they're decent. But as far as reliability goes, those engines are solid. Is N-scale hard to maintain properly, or is it easy? It's not impossible to maintain an N-scale locomotive, but I find generally HO scale locomotives are easier to work on. The parts are just bigger. So if you have good eyesight and you know, fingers that can fit in all the tight spaces, it's all fine to work on N-scale, but I do find them a little bit more difficult. Anyways, I think we can start reassembling this locomotive. You know, ideally, you'd really want to clean these parts up a little bit more, but I don't really have the tools on hand to do that at the moment. So we're just going to throw a bit of fresh oil in it and get it moving again. That's really my only goal with this locomotive. It costs like $3. So we'll just throw a little bit of oil on these bearings here. And we'll pop the wheels back in. Note that the metal sides of these wheels have to be opposite to the ones on the rear truck in order for this locomotive to run properly. So just quickly here, I'll just throw some oil in there. And we'll lower that down. What's the difference between Santa Fe and adjacent Topeka Santa Fe? I'm pretty sure they're the same railroad. I'm not super knowledgeable on the history of that, but as far as I know, they're the same. And we got a super chat from somebody named Cooper. Thank you so much. It says, hello SMT, my name's Cooper. I like trains just like you. Oh, thanks a bunch. I have a really cool Walters Amtrak FP40 with sound in DCC. It's really cool looking and it has great sound. That's awesome. I find Walters is a pretty good brand in general. You know, it's not like they're rolling out the best products on the market, but for the price, I find they're pretty good. SMT, are you a fan of the film Silver Streak? Yes, I'm a huge fan of Silver Streak. The train in Silver Streak's pretty cool. You know, it's basically a stock Canadian Pacific train, which they, you know, decorated into the Amroad paint scheme. But overall, it's an entertaining movie. I mean, I don't know. All the Gene Wilder films are pretty good. What's the best HO scale company? It depends on what you're looking for. Like, if you wanted something with really great detail, I'd go with, like, a Rapido. If you want something, you know, which is super reliable, I'd go with Kato. If you want something that's pretty reliable on a budget, I'd go with the old Athearn locomotives. It really depends on what you're looking for, but there are lots of great brands out there to serve what exactly it is you want. I guess maybe I'll just throw a little bit of grease. These are nylon parts, so I'm not super worried about them wearing down. I mean, they've fared well for 50 years, but we'll throw a little bit of oil on there just to be sure that they don't wear down. And I'll just put a bit of grease on there quickly too, and then we'll get this all glued up. So you can see I didn't entirely drill out the rivets, and that's kind of intentional because I want to line this plate up exactly where it was before, just like that. And then we're actually going to throw some glue where the rivets used to be, and then that's going to hopefully hold this plate in place. This is not an ideal repair. A lot of people would suggest actually putting a nut and bolt, you know, through both those holes. And that's the best thing to do. If you have a locomotive which you really care about, it's going to last a lot longer. But I've done this repair where I've just put a bit of glue on both these spots. And, you know, that was about 5 years ago, and they're still holding up today. So we're going to do that with this locomotive. Again, this is just a cheap locomotive, so we just want to do a quick repair on it just to get it going again. That's really the only goal with this. There are better ways, but, you know, it really depends on how much time you're willing to sink into these kinds of things. So let's try to get that all lined up there, and hopefully this will set properly. Well, seems to be turning pretty well too, which is good to see. So while that sets, I guess we'll work on the rear set of wheels, which are pretty dirty as well, but we'll see what we can do there. Wow, SMT, I remember when you had 19K subs. Now you're getting closer to 10K. Any plans for that? Not specifically. I would really love to do something for 10,000 subscribers if the channel ever gets there. But you know, like it was never a plan to run a channel like this. I really didn't expect anybody to show up and subscribe and so on. You know, I was just making some videos for fun, and then all of a sudden it just started growing. Like when I reached 10,000 subscribers, I was like, wow, you know, that's incredible. What an accomplishment. But now it's just like, my goodness, like it's gone way further. So I want to do something. I'm just not really sure what. Anyways, what would probably be ideal to clean off this rear set of wheels would be to shave off part of this track bright here. But I don't know, we might be able just to scrub it like this. The Tyco Mantua GP20 was very popular due to the fact it was not available except in a high-priced brass. Do you mean against high-priced brass locomotives? What do you think of scale trains as a company? I haven't had any experience with scale trains. I've heard very good things about them. There's a lot of people in the community who are huge fans of them, but I've never actually owned any of their products before, so I can't really say what they're like. Hey SMT, I have an Athearn Blue Box Burlington Northern SD40-2 that runs like crap. It has the loudest motor ever and it makes a clicking noise, and the motor is corroded. Okay, well, if the motor is corroded, that's probably what's creating the clicking noise. Otherwise, I would check in on the gearbox, because if ballast got in there or there's a cracked gear, that will also make a clicking noise. But yeah, I would say, I mean, if it's a junky locomotive, take it apart, throw some fresh oil in it, whatever, you know. The thing is, you know, I have a lot of people that contact me and they say like, hey SMT, I want to work on this locomotive, but I'm kind of scared I'm going to break it. It's like, if it's a junk locomotive that you don't care about, don't worry about opening it up, because if you're going to break it, you're going to break it, but it's already broken basically. So just as long as you're not working on anything of value or something that's maybe sentimental, never hesitate to open something up. I mean, there's really only one way to learn how to work on on these kinds of things, and it's to, you know, just crack them open and just play around. That's how I learned. A lot of people have asked, you know, how I learned how to work on HO scale locomotives, and it's really just about trying. I've had plenty of failures over the years, but that's all right. Is HO scale your favorite? I'd say so. There's nothing wrong with the other scales. I like them a lot too. I think O scale carries a lot more presence. You know, it's really cool seeing these massive locomotives running around. And N scale is pretty cool too, because you can build something massive in a small amount of space. But yeah, generally HO scale is my favorite. You know, it's the cheapest to get into. There's the most in terms of supply. There's a lot going for HO. Well, I think that wheel is looking decent enough, so I guess we'll work on the front one now. Cracking open junk locomotives is where your future parts come from. Yeah, that's just it. You know, if you buy a locomotive for $5, it already has more than $5 worth of parts in it, so you can't really go wrong. But again, you know, if it's a sentimental locomotive, I wouldn't work on it unless you have some experience. You don't want to break something that means something to you, but yeah, my advice to anybody who wants to work on stuff is just buy yourself some cheap locomotives you don't care about. It doesn't really matter if you get them working or not. SMT, can you make some videos on how to do scenery? Yeah, absolutely. I have a couple on my channel, but the thing is, about 2 years ago, a family friend of ours said that he wanted to get his kid into HO scale model trains. I guess he had some when he was younger, so he asked me if I could build him a layout. So I've had this table, which is over, you know, on the other side of the basement. I'll show it later, but I actually plan to start construction on that very soon. So I'm going to try to do, as best I can, a tutorial on how to build a layout. Just a lot of the things I've learned over the years, kind of how to plan a layout, how to put it all together, and hopefully that will be helpful to some of you out there. So anyways, I just want to let the glue set a little bit better. I can already tell it's still got a ways to go. I might get a heat gun out. We could speed this up a little bit. But generally, you know, the best thing to do is just wait. SMT, I have a Santa Fe F7 that runs but needs cleaning. What do I do to clean it? Dismantle the drive, scrub the parts in either rubbing alcohol or soapy water, and just clean the heck out of any metal contacts. And you can do that. You can buy yourself a fiberglass pencil. These cost like $8 on eBay or Amazon. You can probably buy them at a hardware store or an electronics store. Or if you live near a hobby shop, you can go get yourself a track brite. You can probably buy these things online too, but they probably cost a mint. I don't know. But yeah, just get something somewhat abrasive to clean the wheels. Even sandpaper. But if you're going to buy sandpaper to clean metal contacts, get like 1,000 or 2,000 grit. Something that has a high amount of grit, because you don't want to get like 50 grit. That's going to destroy the metal. So that's always an option too. But again, I'd probably pick one of those two. Hey, SMT, I'm planning on buying the Bachmann Pacific Flyer set since I'm new to the hobby. I think the Pacific Flyer set is probably a good one because you can buy those for about $130, and in my opinion, that's a pretty good price for a train set. So yeah, that seems like a pretty good one. Does anyone aware of Lifelike ever using a Dappool motor design? I have a 1988 Lifelike Royal Castle 460 9th Abbey. I took it apart last night and the inside looked like an odd design. I've never heard of that. Interesting. Hey SMT, do you like the TV series Knight Rider? I think it's cool, but I haven't seen very much of it, so I can't really say. Chris Danielle, SMT, can you make a SMT blooper reel? Yeah, I'd have to go through all my footage to try to find those, but there are definitely quite a few too. SMT, should I bite the bullet and get a Walters Via F40PH? If you can find one at a good price, I'd say go for it, because that was one of my first locomotives, and that thing has never let me down. It's been just solid over the years. I would buy another one in a heartbeat. They're very good locomotives. You know, Walters, I don't find they make, you know, the greatest locomotives in terms of detail, but they can certainly make pretty decent locomotives for the price. SMT, I got into my first model railroad club. My parents aren't the biggest fans because it's in a garage upstairs, but it's really cool. It's a 20 by 40 HO scale layout. Sorry, the comments are moving so fast, it keeps pushing this comment up. A 20 by 40 HO scale layout with almost a full room. That's pretty cool. SMT, are you planning on getting a 3D printer to make things for the layout? I've been interested in getting into 3D printing for quite a while now, but I'm just not sure what to get, and I'm also not as tech savvy as a lot of people, so if you have a 3D printer that has some good software that comes with it, please give me suggestions. I am completely open to it. I'm just not sure what to get. And Jack says, most gears will devolve depending on the type of oil you use. Very light oil or synthetic oil. Use a very light oil or synthetic oil for any gears. Yeah, I'd tend to agree with you on that. The only thing is that if you're using metal gears, I would use, you know, some grease. Just because light oil for plastic gears is totally fine. There's not much friction there. But when you're working with metal gears, there's a lot more friction. So you need to have something nice and thick between those, or else they're going to wear down really quickly. The good news is that there's, you know, most modern locomotives use plastic gears anyways, so it's not as big a problem. Have you ever seen the show Breaking Bad? Yes, I did watch Breaking Bad. It's a terrific show. You know, it's kind of dark, but if any of you, well, almost everybody watching this, I'm sure, is into trains. Otherwise, why would you be here on the channel? But if you haven't seen it, there's an episode where they actually have to do a train robbery, and it's super intense, but it was very well done. And I think they actually had help from a railroad museum to create that, so it was pretty cool. SMT, have you ever heard of Northlands? It's a model railroad club located in New Jersey. I've never been there, but yes, I have heard of Northlands. There's a couple documentaries done about it. It's somewhere I'd love to visit one day. How many locomotives do you have? Probably about 430. I think that's what I counted last time. One of the most astounding hobby shops I find had a mint Lifelike Proto 2000 GP38 that only went for $79.99 Canadian. It's not too bad. Anyways, I think this is starting to set pretty well. I might grab a heat gun and just speed this whole thing up. Hold on a moment. Alright, let's see if we can speed this up a little bit. SMT, is the Walters GP15-1 good like your CSX one? As far as I know, they're all the same. It's about as much of that as I want to use. I don't want to overheat the glue. That can cause some funny things to happen. Quit it. You have 455 engines. Did you count them? SMT, I love that Kato BNSF-9, and I had the same one for my Great Northern fleet. Do you prefer HO scale over N scale? I would say so. I just find HO scale locomotives are a little bit easier to work on, but again, that's nothing against N scale. It's terrific for a number of reasons as well. SMT, what's your feeling about a 1980s Atlas SD9? Not been out of the box since the 80s. It's probably not the most valuable locomotive, but those old Atlas locomotives were pretty well built. So, you know, you might want to open it up and just change the oil on it. But other than that, I'd be very surprised if that had any issues. Those are very well built. Don't put too much heat on the locomotive, you'll melt the gears. Yeah, exactly. That's why I just shut that off. I don't want to overheat this. We'll see. It's still not fully set. It's going to take a while for that to happen, but I'll continue reading the chat. GP40, GP50, and GP60 all on the same chassis pretty much. It's all pretty much the same engine. Is there any locomotive that you would recommend to somebody getting into the hobby? Well, despite buying a budget train set, it would probably be one of the Walters locomotives you can find on Amazon for about $80. Those are very well-built locomotives for the money. They're kind of like the last quality locomotives that you can still find cheap today. Obviously, you know, you can find... Every manufacturer at this point is making pretty good stuff. But it's also mostly expensive. So Walters is one of the few companies I feel that's making a quality product. Of course, there's Bachmann stuff. Like I said, it's okay, but I don't feel like it's as good a value for your money. SMT will set immediately using some baking soda. I guess I could add a little bit on there. Just every time I've tried to use baking soda on one of these projects, it goes everywhere, and I don't want it getting in the gearbox because that will help strip down the gears. All of your locomotives seem to be DC. Do you ever work on DCC? I do work on DCC locomotives occasionally, but it's not super common. I have probably about 25 to 30 DCC engines in the collection, but you know, the truth is, most modern locomotives, you just have to maintain them. You know, they don't break down super often. A lot of people ask me why I'm always working on old Tycos, and the reason is that, you know, the old power torques are just not reliable. So there's a lot more opportunities to repair something when there's something to actually break. Looks like that might have hardened there. We're almost there. We could probably even start cleaning the wheels on this. I just don't want this to pop off. Let's get the controller plugged in. Well, that doesn't seem half bad, does it? Let's put that there, and I'll try to clean this up without popping this plate off. I hope I didn't break this. It's running at a lower RPM. Yeah, there we go. I don't know what caused that. But anyways, it looks like the glue has finally hardened, or at least it's probably good enough to take over to the track, and we've got those front wheels all properly cleaned up now. So, let's see how we've done here. Are you into Marklin? I don't own too many Marklin products. I think I have 1 or 2 Marklin engines, but the thing is, most of the stuff from Germany runs on AC power, which uses 3-railed track, and almost all of my stuff is DC or DCC, which, you know, obviously runs on 2-railed tracks, so not so sure. I'd have to buy a special track, basically. Do other members of your family participate or share in your love for model railroading? Yeah, I've got a few train people in the family. My dad was into model railroading as a kid. He's actually the person who got me into model trains, because one night I was over at my grandmother's house, and he actually showed his collection to me, and that's what inspired me to ask for a train set for Christmas that year. So that's how I got started, and my grandmother, actually, too, back in the 1950s, had a train set, so I have some of her locomotives as well. And my uncle is into model trains, too, but he's into O-scale stuff, so it's a little bit different, but still, he's into model railroading, so at some point, for all the Lionel people in here, I'd love to show his collection, if he'd be willing to do an interview, because it's actually quite impressive. Anyways, let's get this thing over to the track and see if it runs. Just gonna try to readjust this camera a little bit. Doesn't Marklin have a line of 2-rail trains with DC motors? I'm pretty sure they do, but I find most of them are AC. Okay, so it's a little rough right now. Let's run it at wide open throttle for a second, and I bet it will break in. Uh-oh. That didn't sound good. Oh no, it actually just derailed. Kind of wondering if that bottom plate broke off. It looks okay. Falls off the table. I hope not. Let's try running it in the other direction. Yeah, it's starting to pull through. I find when these things have been sitting for a long time, that's really what they need. What's important, though, is that the current draw is low. And when we started off, it was pulling about, I don't know, 3/4 of an amp, and now it's pulling about 1/4 amp. So it's definitely running better despite how it looks. Throw a Jeep decoder in it. That would be fun. I don't know how you'd isolate the motor. It might be possible, I don't know. The current draw is low enough, though. Is it possible to put DCC in a power torque? Would you recommend it? Is it possible? Definitely. Is it a good idea? I don't know. I mean, the power torques are not worth that much money to begin with, and a decoder these days costs about $30, so you're basically putting the entire value of a good Tyco power torque back into itself. And on top of that, you also need to mess around with the CVs to work properly with a 3-pole motor, because those decoders are designed to work with 5 poles. I don't know how to adjust the CVs to make that work properly, but apparently that's what you have to do. Don't strip it for parts. I don't see why I would. I mean, this engine seems to be running okay. What do you think of brass track? Brass track's okay. It needs to be cleaned a lot more regularly. Certainly not ideal, but if you're building a DC layout on a budget, you're going to be fine with it, just as long as you're willing to clean it like crazy. Well, it seems to be running consistently now. Let's see too. It's got good reverse. I guess we'll try running it in the opposite direction, see if it will do that. Oops. Putting my house on the floor here. I wonder why it keeps derailing there. Good break-in to run it both ways. Yeah, I probably should run it around in reverse. Let's check the low speed on it. All right. So that's at about 3 volts there. Yeah, so the low speed on it is not that great, but it is running consistently now, so that's good. Well, it was. Wheel gauge. That would be a good thing to check. That could be why it's derailing. Let's have a look here. Just gotta readjust our tripod here. For steam or diesel locomotives, I don't really have a preference. They're both great. Steam engines, I would say, are maybe a bit more striking because you can actually see all the moving parts. They're a lot more alive. It's like a dragon. But diesel locomotives are very impressive. I mean, they're super practical. They're what basically keep the modern world moving as it was. Anyway, we got our NMRA track gauge. That's what we want to get the flanges into, so let's see if that's what's causing derailments. So, despite this being a 50-some-year-old locomotive, the front wheels seem to be perfect. Yeah, they're not out of specs, surprisingly. That's really weird. So something else is causing derailments. Could be that the locomotive is, snagging something on the track, or it could be that there's something wrong with that switch. Just as I'm looking at this, you see how this weight right here kind of points up? I think that maybe this locomotive was dropped and that weight is out of place. What's the measuring tool called? I don't know. Standards gauge. Inch scale Mark II coupler height. I don't know. I think you can find these online pretty cheap. So my guess right here is the reason it's derailing is that, yeah, that screw feels very loose. Either somebody dropped this thing or something else happened because this weight just doesn't look quite right. So let's see if we can pull it out here. Yeah, somebody's repaired this before. I mean, look at this. They didn't even put it back in the right spot. So that's not really ideal. That's probably why this thing is derailing. I think that the back part of this is probably catching on the track. But we'll try just retightening those screws. If we're lucky, maybe that will make this thing work again. I don't know. I don't know. Somebody's been up to some interesting stuff here. Well, I don't love it, but let's see what we can do. How's progress on the Hershey factory going? Quite well, I would say. I was working on it the other day. I made some progress, so I'll show you all in a second here if we can get this weight back in. It's possible the reason these screws weren't too tight was because somebody didn't want to over-torque them and accidentally break their efforts at gluing this back into place. Yeah, those are stripped. See, it's weird too, like, some of this plastic is outside the shell. Like, you see how that part's inside and that one's out? Like, that doesn't look quite right to me. Yeah, it doesn't look great. Well, let's see. Run it without the weight and see what happens. Well, I'm going to try it like this. That little adjustment might have saved it, but I'm not going to be surprised just seeing how those were glued back on if this has some problems. It's still derailing. More TLC. Yeah, I might need that. See, it didn't derail those last 2 times. That's good. There are certain Tyco locomotives well worth over $100 due to their extreme rareness. I have a couple of them. Yeah, if you have a Tyco locomotive in good condition, it might be worth something to someone, but generally these things are not worth more than $5. Running okay for as old as it is. Yeah, and I mean, all these parts are not in ideal shape. You have to eyeball where it hits. Yeah, I don't know. Let's go over there. See, what would be ideal would be to get a slow motion camera and film it running over this section of track. It seems like it's hitting something right here, but... Oh, actually, I do see a little something in there. Now, let's see if it does it this time. Yep. Yeah, it could be that this switch is just kind of coming apart too. That was a bad one. Well, I don't know what to say. The track seems okay. The locomotive's wheels are in shape. The only thing that could be happening is, again, that wheel might be snagging. Or not that wheel, but the back weight. But other than that, I mean, it seems to be running fine, so I'm quite happy with that. It's also definitely going a little bit faster than when we first got this thing going. I mean, it was kind of creeping along, and it's actually kind of flying. Seems to go a little better in the other direction for some reason. But anyways, I think the real question is now, can it haul an intermodal train? Let's see what I can do here. You should make a replica of Hershey Park to go with the Hershey factory. I mean, it would be amazing to recreate Hershey Park, but this is a model of the Hershey factory in Smith Falls, not the PA operation that used to be there. So it wouldn't really fit. There's a little bit too much strain on these intermodal cars. Let's just try to get that out on the main line. I don't know if Jack is still in the chat, but if Jack, if you're in the chat right now, I want to ask you something, which is that, is it unrealistic to stack cars like this? Because I had a lot of people comment on the video where I showed this intermodal train for the first time, and they were saying that they don't do that in the real world, but I've seen a lot of intermodal trains where the cars are stacked with the larger cars on top, so just curious. If you're gonna make a short film where you get everything finished, that would be epic. It's too many things at once. All right. I just need to find that one car that has the proper couplers. I'm going to be curious to see if this Tyco locomotive even has enough power to pull something like this. That's pro-official. Yes, in some parts of the United States, they do stack them that way. Oh, so maybe it's a regional thing. That's interesting. All right, power torque. Time to go out into the real world. They stack the top containers overhanging the bottom containers. That's what I thought, but I got like 2 comments from people who said that they work on a railroad, and they said that this was like a big no-no right here. So I was really confused because I swear I've seen that before. I've seen them stacked both ways here in Illinois. Uh-oh. That's weird. I wonder what caused that. It's a string line derailment. Looks like it has good pulling power. For a locomotive of its age, I'd say so. I mean, it's only 4-wheel drive. Hopefully it will make it through without derailing this time. Need to bend the KD pins. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. It might be snagging. Well, I'll be dipped. Same place again. It's probably that weight again. Let's see if we can get a unique rail fanning perspective of this thing. Shave down the weight with a grinder. I think it would probably be easier just to re-glue those two posts holding it in place. We got a squeaky wheel on the last car. Well, I haven't greased those wheels yet, so not really surprising. Nice new train you've got there. Oh, thanks. I'm happy it's at least capable of pulling this. Squeak adds realism. That's what they said. Don't add grease to the wheels. You'll ruin the prototypical sound. What if the gearbox covers might be loose? It could be catching. Yeah, maybe we should check that. I mean, I did only just put a little bit of CA to get that first one back on, so it's possible that it's not in the right place. How's NerfCat doing? Very well at the moment. Couldn't you just burn some nails through the shell like you did? Yeah, that might work. Let's check in here, though. Let's see if that plate is still holding. I mean, like I said, really what you would want to do is you'd want to drill these out. Now, as you can see, the plate is perfectly flat with the rest of the locomotive, so the glue is actually not the problem in this case. My money's on the weight, but either way, it's doing its job. It's hauling the train. And that's about as much as I want from it. It doesn't look like the rear truck is snagging on the track either. Like if I get this thing down a level or so, and you can see it is clearing the track relatively well. I don't know. Who did the weathering on the New York Central 60-footer? It's very prototypical. I did that with a jerry can, or not a jerry can, sorry, a rattle can. I don't know, I've been asking a lot of people if I should make a tutorial on how to do weathering, because I'm certainly no expert at it, but I find just using a little bit of spray paint can go a long way for weathering stuff. I learned that for, you know, making my runaway train locomotives that, you know, really it's all you need. So like what I did was I just took, whoops. Yeah, all I did to weather this was I took a rattle can with matte finish, and you know, dirt is naturally a matte finish. So I just got some matte finish brown paint and I just sprayed a little on the bottom there, and I think it went okay. I did the same weathering job on a locomotive. I'll go grab it here. Yeah, I did the exact same weathering process on this really cheap Tyco locomotive I fixed up recently. And, I don't know. What do all of you think? I suspect the rear steps are what's causing the derailments. I mean, it's not inconceivable. They are riding pretty low, but yeah, I don't know. I think I'll just leave it as is for now. Looks good to me. Well, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll make a video how to do super easy, cheap weathering. How many Spirit of 76 locomotives do you have? Probably about 5 or 7. You'd be surprised how many cars a cheap Tyco or lifelike locomotive with traction tires can pull. Around 28 to 30. That's pretty good. Jack, SMT, do some service with switching. I don't know. I still need to get my freight yard sorted out. This new yard is way better than the old one, though. I can say that with certainty. I've seen some CSX locomotives with that much dirt. Well, I guess that makes it somewhat prototypical. Power Torques can pull 15 cars, but it wears out the gears faster if you do it often. Yeah. The same would probably go for a lifelike too. The lifelikes, the Tycos and the Bachmans of the 80s, you know, they were taking a very small motor and basically just having it rev like crazy so that it could create torque through gearing. You know, it's an interesting idea. It doesn't save, you know, it doesn't hurt your power pack. It doesn't use much current, but it's not really ideal. You know, the Athearn locomotives of the same time, the Atlases, so on and so forth, those were over-engineered. Lifelikes and Bachmans were under-engineered, and that's why 30 to 50 years up the road, they're starting to have more problems. But, yeah, they're okay. Anyways, I think I'm going to finish off the live stream for today. Thank you all so much for joining in. I'm pretty happy with the results. I mean, the engine's not ideal, nor was this an ideal repair, but for just getting a $3 locomotive riding the rails once again, I'm quite happy with it. I mean, you saw hauling that train. So anyways, I think we'll finish things off there. Thank you so much for joining in, everyone. Have a terrific day.